Maybe we don't mean the same thing when we say democracy. Freedom of press, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, protection of minorities. Those are not things that exist in Iran today.
We don't think you should compare us with Western democracies. You should compare Iran with our neighboring countries.
Today is Saturday, March 7th, 2026, and the most recent initiative in the Iran-Israel-United States conflict is in its 8th day. I've been posting on social media information I have felt would be helpful both for people who are unclear about why the United States is involved in the conflict between Israel and Iran, as well as perspectives for religious people who are in crisis over the conflict as a prophetic indicator of end times. I shared this video compilation, which is an archive of interviews that details the evolution of the relationship between the United States and Iran, as well as the Middle East, as well as the permeation of Western values into Eastern culture. In this video, I have taken a too long, didn't watch approach to this 5-hour compilation, which covers a time span from the late 1970s through 2024. I highly recommend watching the compilation to gain full context for the clips I have chosen. However, these I've chosen will offer a perspective that I think captures the essence of what I believe is important for people to understand today. This 60 minutes compilation of interviews around the relationship between the United States and Iran is a scathing indictment. I'm grateful to have access to such a comprehensive library of journalism focused on the development of radicalism, beginning with the time when Iran recruited Americans to relocate there for work. They hosted an American ghetto with 6,000 United States citizens who relocated, enough that the American school there had 3,200 students enrolled. What happened? I wish people could see the world and international relationships the way I do. I wish that people could see how geopolitical strategy mirrors the same strategies used to keep people subjugated and attached to this dysfunctional government like a parasitic surrogate dependent on its dysfunction to survive. Occupation as gentrification, urbanization, and redevelopment. Sanctions as taxation and debt. Pressures as increased cost of living like utilities, food, gas, housing. Hostile intervention as a personal crisis, medical, financial, employment, relational. And then deals can be made. It's what being strong-armed feels like personally, but it's rarely just one person affected. It's entire communities and regions. These are textbook plays for all dictators. You win the minds of people with promises of stable work and economic prosperity, win the hearts of people with a divine mandate, and with the trust of the people, you indoctrinate their children until they are independent enough to rebel, and then the parents and other trusted leaders can be exterminated or emasculated. Trump isn't the first, and it isn't prophetic. It's a pattern and very predictable. There's a difference between pathological lying and psychopathic lying. People who lie psychopathically are aware of an important truth and understand that it cannot be shared because it's foundational to maintaining the lie, like human trafficking, illegal drugs and weapons distribution, intelligence trading, etc. The truth is of something inhumane, but acceptable to the psychopath: slavery, breeding, child exploitation, abuse, torture. The person or persons are perfectly aware that what they condone is socially unacceptable, but because the resultant behaviors and outcomes cannot be suppressed, they invent lies to explain what is happening that makes sense, but only within a restricted framework. It is this fragile frame that erodes a person's problem-solving capacity over time because they do not learn how to fully resolve issues they are tasked to address. Conflict resolution atrophies because the person literally can no longer see the problem correctly. It's a preservative aspect of the mind. Over time, the person must overcome and adapt to an inherent need to be socially functional, and as a result, learns to quell or numb the emotions designed to help facilitate that. Guilt, contrition, shame, fear of consequences, etc. An important aspect of their humanity dies. What is the role of an advisor or an ambassador? What is the purpose of mediation? You cannot assess the best method to correct a problem if you do not have all of the relevant information, which includes understanding the causes, mechanical, technological, environmental, behavioral. I would ask Black natives and African Americans in the United States who watch this video to hold in mind the founding goals of organizations like the Black Panthers or the Nation of Islam for the collective advancement of the communities most impacted by them, and then allow that to help you discern what may be happening for Native citizens in the Middle East. It may help you to see the situation differently than it has been portrayed in American media reports. Ultimately, in every place on this planet, the majority of us want the same things for the same reasons. We want to feel safe, healthy, and happy enough to enjoy our relationships, families, and communities. We do not simply want our basic needs met. We want to thrive without fear that the fruit of our efforts will be stolen by people who do not have the capacity or desire to learn how to properly care for themselves. The problem isn't the majority. It's the focus of people in positions of power and leadership and their personal morals and ethics, which stand in contradiction to the missions they lead people to believe they are focused on. If history has taught us all nothing else, is that a better method for evaluating the people you follow is critical, and that centralization of governance, information, and decision-making ultimately works to the disadvantage of those who are impacted the most.
There are 31,000 Yanks living in Iran, military, diplomats, teachers, technicians, businessmen and women, and their families. And the U.S. Embassy there predicts there will be 50,000 Americans in Iran by 1980. Why? Why so many? Because Iran has oil, Iran has money, and the Shah of Iran is trying for a great industrial leap forward, trying to propel his country ahead by a century in the space of a single generation. To do that, he needs Yanks. Bob Monroe is one of them. He and his wife and son arrived about a year ago. Bob had been a combat helicopter pilot in Vietnam. When he went home to Maryland, he ran bulldozers, but he yearned to fly again. Iran offered that chance as a teacher, as a pilot instructor for the Shah's growing helicopter squadrons. It's families like the Monroes who have established the American beachhead in Iran.
Now about 27 minutes here before 11 o'clock in the morning on NIRT International with the AWC Group and an all-day sightseeing tour of Tehran. Lunch will also be included.
You know, the American Women's Club General Membership Meeting is scheduled for Tuesday at 9:30 at the Hilton.
All AWC members who wish to participate in the Saturday Morning Bowling League must register now.
Logistics engineers will hold their next monthly meeting in the Caravanserai restaurant. Members are asked to
publicize any event about your club, school, or organization.
There are some interesting exhibitions going on at the Iran American Society from now through the 26th in galleries 1 and 2 from 5 until 8.
And here are the news headlines at 11 o'clock.
Play it smart. If you have a drinking problem, get help. It could save your whole
58
future.
degrees outside, looking for a high today of 74 degrees.
This is an American ghetto in Iran, Tehran American School. 3,200 students who spend 7 hours a day, 5 days a week inside these walls. And their weekend activities are mostly managed by the school as well. To gain admission, their parents must hold an American passport and be able to spend $2,400 a year for their tuition. The parents of most of these youngsters are middle-aged, middle management, though there are some blue-collar parents, too. The students get just about the same curriculum they'd get back home, for instance, in Bedford, Texas, with one addition, a stab at Farsi, the Persian language. But the problem is few of them get to know much about Iran and the Iranians, for they seldom leave their gilded ghetto. And some of the youngsters are unhappy about that.
I think gives them a false sense of security. Oh, I'm back in the States. I'm not really in Iran. Because most of them don't want to be here, which is an awful thing to say, but that's the way it is. They don't enjoy being away from from a place where you can speak English to everyone and everyone will understand you. They don't want to miss out on the hamburger stands and walking down and getting a Coke anytime you wanted one.
A lot of kids here just make the school and the football games and the American Community Center their home. That way they have a small America right here.
School busing in Tehran is no issue. There is no argument about it, because the American community is plagued by the fear that a terrorist group like the Islamic Marxists who oppose the Shah will strike at him through these American children. Already they have killed 6 adult Americans, so door-to-door delivery for these children is a must. American families are briefed by the U.S. Embassy on how to protect themselves. Even Ambassador Richard Helms, ex-CIA boss, got a death threat.
There is no doubt that there are certain elements in the world that would like to see the alliance between Iran and the United States broken apart. One of the ways to make it difficult for the United States to work with Iran is to kill Americans in Iran, which in turn will make Americans feel that it's dangerous to come here, and that in turn will affect the programs that the two countries have going together.
How serious is the opposition here, the urban guerrillas?
It's a relatively small group, maybe 100, 200 at the most, that they are the kind of individuals who, when they're arrested, commit suicide on the spot, either by blowing themselves up with a hand grenade or taking a tablet that will kill instantly, so that they've been highly trained and they have been motivated, and there's no doubt about it that the way they do these jobs is professional.
It was at this spot in the suburbs of Tehran one morning last August that 3 American civilians who worked at Rockwell International on something called Project Ibex, an electronic surveillance system, were ambushed in their car and gunned down by urban guerrillas. The year before, 2 American colonels had been ambushed in the same way. A protest against the Shah's dependence on American electronic know-how, on the American military. One doesn't think of Americans as migrant workers, and yet that's what a good many of them here in Iran are. Aircraft maintenance men, technicians, helicopter instructor pilots who worked in Vietnam. They couldn't find work now at home, and so they came here, attracted by the boom. The Shah needs Americans to keep his billion-dollar Air Force from rusting on the runways. These new arrivals work for Bell Helicopter, the largest employer of Americans here. With dependents, some of them from past duty in Indochina, the Bell family numbers 6,000 U.S. citizens. These families are about to suffer culture shock.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Isfahan, Iran. We are here to assist you.
They get a 3-week orientation course: how to find a house, how to shop, how to treat Iranians, and what to expect from them.
Here, the fact that basic religion is Islamic or Muslim. Therefore, when you go into the bazaar area or in general shopping, please watch what you wear. I would not recommend wearing shorts. We should respect the tradition of the country here.
Most Americans acknowledge they have come here for the money, but our pilot instructor Bob Monroe is disillusioned.
I came here for the money and for adventure. But getting back into flying is why I came here. Doing a job you enjoy. That's the American dream, of course. But as it turned out, the company I worked for was not totally honest with me. Perhaps I didn't ask enough questions, but in Bedford, where they originate, I was painted a slightly different picture than the one that I found.
Why did Bell Helicopter tell you that you were going to get here, or what life was going to be like that it isn't?
Well, they said, for example, that there was transportation. Well, that may not sound like much, except, well, I was given money when I arrived, but I was not given enough to cover a car, a house, housing, and this type of thing. I found no help when I arrived. For example, I got a car through a taxi driver and a house through a bartender.
Since we were there, Bob's wife and his 6-year-old son have gone home to Maryland. She didn't want to cope anymore with life in Isfahan. No relatives, no telephone, no supermarket. She was bored. Bob stayed behind to serve out his contract.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir.
A Senate Foreign Relations Committee report warns that Iran is so dependent on American advisors that it couldn't go to war any time in the foreseeable future without American instructors, technicians, mechanics being drawn in. The Shah's military simply cannot operate without them.
Proceed to the flight line and continue your mission.
And Bob Monroe says they are slow learners.
I'd say they're not as sophisticated to begin with. They're a little slower. They're like children. They're motivated. They want to do it. They want to please me very much. You know, whatever, they want to make me happy in the helicopter. I don't think they fully understand that I'm not going to be there forever and that it's as real a thing as it is.
The airspeed is such, it's got to be kept at 60 knots.
I'll have enough when I go back for a down payment on a mediocre house. And people, the general consensus is that we're coming home as young, wealthy people, you know, and we can retire or something. We can't. We're just, this interlude will be a disappointment.
In other words, the pot of gold is not at the end of the rainbow in Iran.
That's exactly right. The pot of gold is not there.
One American who enjoys Iran is the boss at the General Motors assembly plant, Lou Wilking. He's even putting together Cadillac Sevilles to sell locally at $30,000 a copy.
First big difference, and the reason I'm here, is if I were back in the States, I'd be compartmentalized. I would be a expert in a category. Over here, you come here and you're everybody. You do your own advertising program, you do your own manufacturing programs, you engineer your cars, you do all of these things.
Can you add up for us what a man expects when he comes here from the United States in money and what he gets?
I'm not aware of all the specifics of the contracts, but they're generally given a completion bonus. If you complete 1 year, we'll give you X. If you complete a second year, we'll give you something more. We'll give you like a 30% premium because of cost of living. And one of the problems that they run into over here is most of the companies have given the man a fixed rental allowance. It sounds very adequate in the United States. I'm going to give you $450 a month for your house. I'm going to give you $150 for car maintenance or car payments. I'm going to pay you $12,000. I'm going to pay you 30% premium. I'll give you $3,000 if you complete 1 year. I'll give you $10,000 if you complete the second year.
Hey, where do I sign up?
Okay, the man comes over here, though, and the first thing he finds out that he can't rent a house for $450. He'll find that he'll pay $1,500, $2,000, maybe $2,200. Okay, if he pays $2,000 and has been given an allowance of $450, this is $1,550 out of his spendable income, which when you gross it up for taxes, he probably had to make a couple of $1,000s a month, and he's wiped out.
Overseas Americans like Lou Wilking used to get a tax break. Their first $25,000 in salary used to be tax exempt. Now they have to pay on all but $15,000, which means a big tax increase for most of them.
The tax thing, very simply, the companies that have all these American people over here are going to have to tax protect those people. A guy's not going to leave Detroit or Cincinnati or Memphis, Tennessee and come to Iran and find out he's taken home $4,000 less than he was when he was back there.
One family that's going home are the Jim Smiths, who've been here for 8 years. Their apartment costs $1,000 a month and the rent's going up. Jim's a consulting engineer. Maria is president of the American Women's Club.
They think they're coming to the promised land, that they can save a lot of money.
That's the reason they come to begin with.
That's correct. And then as they arrive and find that transportation costs them a fortune, the rent is expensive, the lunches for the children in school are expensive, food is high, especially if they're not geared to wanting to live off the local economy. They find that their salaries don't even go from payday to payday.
It takes you how long each morning to get to your office?
On a good day, it can take me an hour. Some days it could take 3 hours. I have seen days where I could not get there. I just had to give up and turn around.
You mean because of the traffic?
Traffic. Camels, donkeys, tankers, buses, cars.
Sheep.
And just a 2-lane highway.
Tehran has come to look like every other overcrowded city on the planet. Smog, noise, and cars. And Iranians may just be the most reckless drivers on the planet. The fatality rate is staggering, 100 times that of Paris. Boeing Aircraft forbids its American employees to drive here. It sounds, Maria, as though for the American woman, their mobility is restricted.
It's severely restricted.
That's right. They get cabin fever.
They what?
Get cabin fever.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
The women do?
Yes.
Why, Jim?
Their husbands go, they travel in Iran. They go to their work. But the average housewife, unless she has a club she can go to or means to get there, she's in her house.
You can beat the Vikings, ain't no way, hey!
Most adult Americans in Iran are wary of talking candidly about their life here. The Shah does not look kindly on criticism. But American youngsters haven't learned caution. Steve, drugs and young Americans here. Big problem?
Yeah, definitely.
What kind of drugs and why so big a problem?
Hard drugs.
Heroin?
Yeah. It's so easy to come by. They can get it just walking. There's certain places in the city where they can go, and they know they can get it. And they go there and they get it cheap, and it's pure stuff, and it's stronger. And they can really get hooked on it, and it's cheap. And
Is there much drug use among parents, among the older people?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. That's their
It's a
problem.
big problem. And people won't admit it either.
I know a lot of mothers that don't speak the language sit home every day. And you can't sit in the house every day with being scared to go out of the house or not wanting to go out of the house because you don't know the language. And they turn to alcohol, and it's just terrible because it gets on the kids too. Well, I did have a friend who, they just didn't like it here at all, the family. And their father got drunk quite often. And when he came home, I was there one night, and they had a bit of a fight, first the father and mother, and then they turned on the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all due to the alcohol.
It's definitely not a place to come if you've got a problem of any kind. I don't care if it's alcohol or marital problems. A lot of people have come over here thinking, a new life, we'll start over. Mm-hmm. Well, they find it worse.
If you took a vote of the 30,000 Americans here in Iran, are they disappointed or happy? Do they want to stay or go? Which way would they vote?
I think they would go.
If the United States is understandably obsessed with the hostages, the Iranians are understandably obsessed by their war with Iraq. At the beginning, the news from the war front seemed devastating, but a vision of quick Iraqi victory has now apparently changed into a costly standoff. At this defensive outpost atop a mountain facing the Iraqi border, territory retaken from the Iraqis, there are still partially buried Iraqi bodies. This young Revolutionary Guard claimed he was 17, but he looked more like 14. Who's your leader?
رهبرت کیه؟
Imam Khomeini.
Imam Khomeini, yes. At back it says death to U.S. and...
Death to U.S.? You know? I am American.
میگه من آمریکاییم.
ما با حکومتش جنگ داریم، با کارتر جنگ داریم، نه با آمریکایی. با ملتش کار نداریم.
He says we are fighting against the U.S. imperialism, not the people of the United States.
More anti-American slogans in Kermanshah near the Western Front. Iraqi bombers leveled this elementary school, killing 18 children and injuring scores more. Despite their knowledge that those Iraqi planes and bombs were Soviet-made, the Iranians blame the United States, the friend of the despised Shah, for this carnage. Death to America, these children are shouting. An American is struck by the apparent fervor of anti-Americanism today in Iran. Iranians at all levels fully believe that Iraq attacked only after the U.S. gave them the go-ahead. In the nearby town of Islamabad, more residential areas devastated by Iraqi bombs. Iraqi planes? An old mullah whose entire family was wiped out in an air raid that hit his mosque counts on his fingers the number of his friends who died in the attack.
65 killed.
And once again, groups of Iranians chant anti-American slogans for the benefit of the touring foreign press. The commander-in-chief of the Western Front, Colonel Hashang Atarian, also believes the U.S. is the behind-the-scenes culprit, and further, that there is a good possibility Iran will wind up at war with America. Colonel, yesterday President Bani Sadr said to me that as the defeat of Iraq approaches, he believes it is possible that the United States would intervene militarily on behalf of Iraq. Would you please, in English, which you know well, would you please answer whether you agree with him?
American navies are near our border, and so we think after defeated the Iraq, we will fight with United States.
You believe that?
Yes, sir.
The anti-Americanism, however, is not an end in itself. It's a propaganda device the hardliners in the government use to unify Iranians. The U.S. is the whipping boy that helps fuel the revolutionary spirit. Those hardliners, opposed to the comparative moderation of President Bani Sadr, are mainly mullahs, ayatollahs. And in the Majlis, the parliament, it is they who hold the power of the purse. They control much of radio and television, the press, the prisons, and the courts. It is they who threw former Foreign Minister Gopsadek into prison for criticizing their television programming. The key hardliners are Beheshti, said to be the real power, Rafsanjani, the Speaker of the Majlis, and the Prime Minister Rajai, called by some the puppet of the other two. It is because of them that Bani Sadr finds himself in the position of being the leader of the opposition. Last month at a huge rally in Tehran, he spoke out sharply against the excesses of the Islamic hardliners. He said the Shah was not overthrown just to re-establish the same kind of repression under a new regime. He spoke of torture going on, of people vanishing for months on end. If Israel's goal in blanketing Lebanon with rockets last week was to drive a wedge between the militant Islamics of Hezbollah, who were attacking them, and the Lebanese people who have no interest in attacking anyone, just getting on with their lives, it failed, mainly because the Israeli retaliation produced a massacre of innocent Lebanese civilians of such monumental proportions that no one could ignore it. For years, the Lebanese view of Hezbollah was not much different from the American view, a shadowy Middle Eastern group of fanatics that was not above bombing the American embassy, taking American hostages, and hanging an American colonel. Who and what is Hezbollah today? We asked Bob Simon, CBS's Man in the Middle East, to find out for us.
This is Baalbek, the ancient Roman capital of the Bekaa Valley and the Holy of Holies for Hezbollah. Until recently, the only Americans who came here were in chains. But the guerrillas are beginning to open up their inner sanctum and their movement. They want to spread the word from here to all of Lebanon, and they say they want to do it in a legal, peaceful, and democratic way. The temples, they'll tell you, have been here forever. And that's what Hezbollah wants to be in Lebanon, forever. The organization which once communicated through anonymous phone calls now runs 2 television and 4 radio stations. The message? Hezbollah isn't malevolent, just misunderstood.
Hezbollah is never the aggressor. Hezbollah stands for uniting all the different groups in Lebanon.
That was Sheikh Yazbek, and he runs the Hezbollah show in Baalbek, where the mullahs now compete with Madison Avenue, where tourists are welcome again. Welcome to visit the temple of Bacchus, the god of wine, in this town where you can't get a drink. The captured Israeli APC inscribed, "Death to Israel, Death to America," isn't on the tourist itinerary, but the sheikhs have learned a trick or two from their enemies, fundraising, for example. Sort of the united Hezbollah appeal. The Israeli legend fell before our fighters, he says. The crowd chants, the Jews are defeated. That's the pitch in Baalbek, but these days, Hezbollah is also raking it in Beirut, on Hamra Street, the secular heart of the capital. Even the authorities are contributing their share. But just a few weeks ago, this guy wouldn't have shown his face in this part of town. That is, before the Israeli onslaught.
Do you think that the Israeli invasion actually increased Hezbollah's popularity?
Yes.
So the Israelis gave Hezbollah a gift?
Absolutely.
Lebanon's prime minister, billionaire Rafik Hariri, takes the Israeli operation personally. He has staked his political career on rebuilding Lebanon and has invested more than $100 million of his own money in specific projects, some of which the Israelis demolished last week.
But they destroyed bridges and roads and power plants precisely to make you, the Lebanese, suffer so that you would turn against Hezbollah. Did that work?
You see, that doesn't work. It will not work. Because we have said very clearly, Hezbollah problem cannot be solved by force.
We also talked to Nasib Lahoud, a Christian, a former ambassador to the United States, and a member of parliament where Hezbollah now controls a large bloc. He's about as far from the sheikhs in Baalbek as Newt Gingrich is from Karl Marx.
Hezbollah have the occupation logic on their side, and as long as they have that, people have difficulty coming up against them.
That by no means suggests that Hezbollah has a large following.
Most people in Lebanon do not share Hezbollah's objectives, do not share their methods, or do not share their vision of the world. But people have difficulty condemning other Lebanese as they resist occupation of parts of Lebanon.
But Israel's occupation of parts of Lebanon is designed to prevent Katyusha rockets from falling on its northern settlements. Any Israeli will tell you that. But any Lebanese will tell you that if Israel withdraws from southern Lebanon, Hezbollah will surrender its weapons. Who says? The Prime Minister says.
Absolutely.
Can you guarantee that?
I can guarantee that.
Do the Syrians want that?
For sure.
There's no question who holds the key to this. It's Syrian President Assad. The rockets may come from Iran, but they'd never get to Hezbollah if Assad stopped them at the border. But after more than 10 years of shuttling between their homes and their shelters, the Israelis are understandably skeptical. So are the Americans. After all, Hezbollah is the outfit that bombed the American embassy here, took the hostages, hanged an American colonel, and is trying to torpedo the American-sponsored peace process. But that's only one face of Hezbollah, and it's not the image for export. Not now, anyway. In the destitute Shiite suburbs of Beirut, Hezbollah's popularity stems less from its fire and brimstone than from its social services. It runs a welfare program costing millions of dollars. It offers free food, free schools, free clinics.
Yes.
The medical program is run by Silvana Khalil. Until recently, Hezbollah women did not give interviews. Until recently, Hezbollah women did not wear shawls by Valentino.
What is Hezbollah's program for Lebanon?
Hezbollah program in Lebanon to bring the security for the unpeaceful people here.
What she means is security for the peaceful people of Lebanon. But actually, the program's a lot more than that. Hezbollah wants nothing less than an Islamic state. No alcohol, no public entertainment, no co-educational institutions. Hezbollah's charity is designed to win over the masses in areas where the Lebanese government barely exists. It is a state within a state, organized according to the word of Muhammad, the great messenger. In fact, the hospital of the great messenger is one of the finest in Beirut. It is free, and it is run by Mohammed Ijazi.
It is a Lebanese movement for sure, and you can see from the leaders to the smallest soldier in Hezbollah, they are Lebanese.
But the picture I see outside the hospital is a picture of the Ayatollah Khomeini.
Yes, he is one of our famous leaders.
There's the rub. Hezbollah is inspired, funded, and run from Tehran. In the basements which once held hostages, food is now distributed, and it's all imported from Iran. So is the money. It comes in suitcases full of $100 bills, say Lebanese officials, from the Iranian embassy in Assad's capital, Damascus.
Some Lebanese say that the problem with Hezbollah is that while it says that it is a Lebanese movement, its allegiance is really to Iran.
Also, this is not a big secret now. Hezbollah needs support to go in this fight. We are a small nation in Lebanon. We need financial aid, we need help. We look for aid from wherever it comes.
Iranian Foreign Minister Veliati dropped by to check on his investment this week, visited the wounded. If he'd attended the funeral of a Hezbollah fighter a few blocks away, he would have felt right at home. It could have been Tehran. And that's Hezbollah's ultimate goal here, an Iranian-style theocracy. But an Islamic State in Lebanon has about as much chance as a Buddhist state in the Bronx. The notion is profoundly un-Lebanese. After all, this city used to be, and again wants to be, the Monte Carlo of the Middle East. The day there's a peace deal, the day Israel leaves this country, Hezbollah might well discover its proper place in Lebanese politics, on the fringe.
But in the meantime, Bob, is there a genuine ceasefire, and can we look for something more than just a ceasefire?
It's not even a ceasefire, Mike. It is an understanding, and the understanding is merely that civilians on both sides are off limits. The Israelis and Hezbollah can continue to fight it out within the Israeli-occupied zone of southern Lebanon, and they will. In fact, I would sort of suspect that Hezbollah will try to score some Israeli casualties very soon to show that they're still around and to stick it to the Israelis.
So what we're looking for is just a quiet interval until it begins again, you believe?
I don't think it'll begin again for some time because the Israelis, the Syrians, and the Americans want the relative peace to hold. And whenever the Israelis, the Syrians, and the Americans want anything around here, it happens.
Who knows more about the right of the Palestinian, Hashemi Rafsanjani or Yasser Arafat?
We are not alone. Many Palestinians speak like us. They also take action. We do not take any action.
But the U.S. says Iranian money may have helped pay for these bombings of Israeli buses and markets that killed 61 civilians last year. Iran denies it. Rafsanjani condemns America's support of Israel and what he calls America's heavy-handed foreign policy, and most Iranians agree with him. We spoke with hikers up in the Elburz Mountains outside Tehran, where residents of the capital like to go on their day off.
You know, what we feel about you, about the United States, that you want to control every country, every policy, every movement, everything.
You really believe that?
We really believe in that.
For instance?
For example, about Iraq. If Iraq wants to capture Kuwait, it's none of America's business.
And she thought it was none of our business how Iranian women dress. But still, she explained the dress code which requires women to cover all but their faces with dark, loose-fitting clothes.
Do you resent the fact that you have to wear
No.
shador?
I believe in it.
You do? Why?
Yeah, I do. I believe that all a woman's beauties are to be limited in for one's family.
But off camera, several women told us that most of them do resent having to wear those clothes, but they were afraid to complain about anything on camera.
We shouldn't talk anything about politics. You should know. But I mean,
this is a free country.
I mean, it's a free country. Okay, it's a free country for you.
Iran is a tricky story for a television reporter because what you see may be less important than what you cannot see. Beyond the dress code, single people are not allowed to date. No one is allowed to drink alcohol. But behind closed doors and drawn curtains, many unmarried Iranians still have parties, even though they risk a fine and a night in jail if they get caught.
How do you reconcile the public and private lives of your women? In private, you know this. Many of them wear revealing clothes. Many of them, of a certain class, drink whiskey, alcohol, and they mingle with men freely. And you know it's true. Doesn't the Islamic Republic force some of its women, anyway, to be hypocritical in the lives they live?
There are some people who do not believe in our laws. We can tell them to observe the dress code in the street. This is required by law. But in their homes, we can have no influence on them. They do what they want. We know there are many people like this.
The sexes are kept so separate that men get on the front of the bus, women get on in back. Still, life for women is getting better. Women have more chances in both education and employment. These students at the Foreign Language Institute hope to become interpreters.
You find this young man attractive, or one standing over there. Would there be a problem going to the movies together?
Well, just talking is okay, no problem, but nothing more.
But in Iran, as in America, people care most about the economy. The capital, Tehran, looks better than ever. It's clean and prosperous, with new buildings sprouting up all over. America's trade embargo has had little effect because America's allies, France and Germany, are gobbling up contracts that would have gone to U.S. companies. So oil money keeps pouring in. Under the watchful gaze of the late Ayatollah Khomeini, who led the revolution against the Shah, the government has built highways and hospitals and schools in rural villages that never had them before. But in the cities, prices, especially food prices, are so high and wages so low that people often have to work at 2 or even 3 jobs just to make ends meet. In fact, many young people don't have enough money to get married. So more Iranians are resorting to what are called temporary marriages. They get a signed certificate from their local religious leader that declares them married for as little as 1 day, 1 week, 1 month.
There are many people who need to satisfy their instincts on a temporary basis.
For 1 day, or 1 week, or 1 month?
Whatever the length of time.
It sounds like legitimizing illicit sexual relations.
No, there is an order to it. Psychologically, this is a legal act, not a forbidden act that everyone is afraid of.
But there is still plenty of fear in Iran. Now the hardliners believe their culture is under aerial attack. Government murals warn people not to be seduced by evil influences from private satellite dishes.
The government here banned private satellite dishes about a year ago because they were becoming alarmed at the huge enthusiasm young Iranians were showing for Western television, movies, fashion, the lifestyles that they could see on their television sets. So now Iranians are hiding their illegal satellite dishes outside behind the bushes or inside near a window. But the truth is, it will be simply impossible for the government to ban Western influences because they are literally falling from the sky. Do you know what Baywatch is?
No, I haven't seen it.
Young women, very small bathing suits. And there are people who have satellite dishes in Iran who charge their neighbors to go to their place because they still have a satellite dish to watch Baywatch.
It might be so, but you must admit that these kinds of programs cause problems for young people. They weaken the foundation of a family, and they have created problems in the West. And the statistics of women without husbands and children without fathers in the West are terrible.
Are you suggesting that perhaps we should have an Islamic Republic of the United States?
No, I am saying that you should have good ethics. Do not allow perversion in the ethics of your young people.
Maybe we don't mean the same thing when we say democracy. Freedom of press, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, protection of minorities. Those are not things that exist in Iran today.
We don't think you should compare us with Western democracies. You should compare Iran with our neighboring countries.
For the past 35 years, the United States and Iran have been locked in a hostile relationship marked by diplomatic isolation, military threats, and deep mutual mistrust. Then last November, something happened. Amid rising tensions in the Middle East and the possibility of a military attack against Iran's nuclear facilities, the two sides stepped back and signed what amounted to a temporary truce. Iran agreed to freeze development of its nuclear capability, and in exchange, the U.S. and 5 world powers promised Iran some relief from economic sanctions. A permanent deal is still under negotiation. The primary catalyst was the election last year of Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, a reform-minded cleric who won a surprising and convincing victory by promising to improve the economy and end Iran's international isolation. Clearly something is going on in Tehran, and we wanted to see it firsthand. Last month, we were granted visas and packed our bags for an 8-day visit.
The thing that strikes you most about Tehran is that it defies expectation. It's a sprawling, modern city with 12 million people, and most of them are offended by the perceived image of their country as a hostile, backward, dangerous place filled with terrorists, a conservative Islamic police state ruled by a religious theocracy. It's much more complicated than that. Iran is one of the wealthiest, best educated, most sophisticated countries in the Middle East, and most people here are eager to end their political and economic isolation if their government can work out a deal.
There is a lot of misinformation and disinformation about Iran.
Dr. Mohammad Nahavandian speaks from experience, having spent years in the United States getting a PhD in economics from George Washington University. Today, he's chief of staff to President Hassan Rouhani and considered by some to be the second most powerful person in the new government, one that would like America to forget about the rantings of former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and try a different approach that does not lead to military confrontation and war.
Now we are opening a new chapter, a chapter of building trust. Now that both sides have recognized that this cannot and should not continue. The best way is to coming to some agreement, and instead of imposing economic sanctions, try to utilize economic relations to overcome political disagreement.
In Iran, Nahavandian and his boss, President Rouhani, are both pragmatic moderates, less concerned about ideology than fixing the sick Iranian economy, which was the mandate from voters. To do it, Rouhani has to ease the economic sanctions that have been imposed by the U.S. and Europe as punishment for pursuing a nuclear program. The country's limited ability to export oil, import goods, and participate in the international banking system are largely responsible for high unemployment and an inflation rate of 30%. What about the sanctions? How difficult is the economy?
He hopes that it gets better while they are negotiating. And he wants things to get cheaper.
Cheaper. While the sanctions and their effects have imposed considerable pain and hardship on many Iranians, we saw no evidence that the economy was on the verge of collapse. The bazaars were filled with goods and people were shopping.
It is serious, but as we said, it hasn't really brought Iran to the knee.
Sayed Fateh and his son Abdullah are part of the business class that President Rouhani is trying to empower by privatizing state-owned industry, increasing competition, and opening up Iran to the world. They say the sanctions have done enough harm to get Iran to the bargaining table, but not enough to force the Iranians into a final deal they don't want to make. Do you think that Iran is willing to make concessions on its nuclear program?
It depends on the concessions, doesn't it? To stop it totally, I doubt it. But to reach some middle grounds, most probably.
The Fatehs gave up a comfortable expatriate lifestyle in the States more than a decade ago to return here and become pioneers in the Iranian internet. Their company, Pars Online, is now one of the country's largest service providers, but not as large as they would like it to be. How do you run an internet company and build an internet company when there are sanctions in place?
Everything is possible, but it's just a bit more expensive and a bit longer to bring everything.
You can get practically anything you want.
I'm expecting that the new Google Glass product that's coming out, hopefully, probably within the next month or two, you'll be able to find it in Iran.
In northern Tehran, we found shopping malls that would not be out of place on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. They cater to the country's elite, many who made their fortunes through close ties to the government and even the clergy. We saw French perfume, designer clothes, and brand names like GoPro, Samsung, and Apple. Not far away was a showroom for BMWs and Porsches.
And how does it get here?
Well, I'm sure they have ways to get things in through various borders, I presume.
It was clear Sayed had no interest in discussing the details, and when we asked him about internal opposition to the negotiations with the U.S., his son Abdullah suggested in Farsi that his father not respond.
I mean, there are people in this country and people outside the country who really don't want to see this happen.
Well, no, why not? You do see some newspaper articles or talks, but whether or not that's a reality or not is a different issue.
During our time in Tehran, we were able to travel around without government supervision and free to speak with anyone who would talk to us about what was going on. It wasn't always easy to get answers.
There are many people speak English in Bazaar, but none of them. None of them talks about politics.
You don't want to talk about politics?
No, I don't want to talk politics.
Nobody wants to talk
Where
about
are you
from? The United States. What do you think of President Rouhani?
He's better. He's better. That's it.
People in Tehran are very careful about what they say, which makes it difficult to figure out what's going on, even for Iranians. While there is wide popular support for President Rouhani's policies of moderation and engagement, there is also subterranean opposition from hardline rivals who have benefited from the status quo, including powerful forces that are either invisible or inaccessible to Westerners.
One of them is the Revolutionary Guard, Iran's elite military and security force that's charged with protecting the revolution from internal and external threats. But the Guard is more than that. It is a powerful political and economic force with tentacles in industries like construction, telecommunications, and banking.
They could be seen occasionally in uniform marching in patriotic parades, but the Guard operates mostly in secret, a shadowy brotherhood that, among other things, arms and trains Iran's proxy armies like Hezbollah in its fight against Israel. They do not give interviews to Western journalists, but they've been critical of Rouhani in the Iranian press. Other hardliners have held demonstrations that oppose any Iranian concessions in negotiations with the U.S. We asked Mohammad Nahavandian, the president's chief of staff, about it, and he answered very carefully.
The Revolutionary Guard is very much opposed to any kind of a deal, opposed even to the negotiations. True?
I think that generalization is not correct.
You know, my understanding is that this is not necessarily a smooth road for President Rouhani in terms of mustering support on all the things that he wanted to do when he ran for office.
Isn't that the definition of a democratic election?
That seems to be an acknowledgement that there are people here that are giving you a hard time.
The elected president is being accepted and supported by the supreme leader. So the whole system are supporting the elected president, and that is the case.
President Rouhani was elected to run the Iranian government, but it's his boss, the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, who actually runs the country and has the last word. He doesn't give interviews to Western journalists either, but he has no problem communicating with his followers through state-run media and the local mosques. If you want to know what's on the Ayatollah's mind, and we did, you can go to places like Ware-Avant, a religiously conservative working-class suburb on the southern outskirts of Tehran. We were there during and after Friday prayers, and our presence caused quite a stir.
Where are you from? We're from the United States.
What?
From America.
America. What's your country?
America.
America. America?
Yes.
Oh my God.
What, you've never seen an American?
No.
No? No?
No.
We're journalists.
Word spread quickly, and within a few minutes we were surrounded by a crowd of people eager to share 3 decades worth of pent-up feelings about the United States, as told to them by the Supreme Leader.
The negotiating is good, but what is bad is that America is doing very bad things. After negotiating, Obama is telling the option of army is on the table. It is not a good thing.
What we want is not to impose anything to us. Nothing should be imposed by the US to us. This lady also is saying that our Supreme Leader said to the government people that go and make peace and make that agreement. But I'm not very optimistic about this US policies.
We listened to their now familiar grievances, beginning in 1953, when a US-backed coup brought down a popular democratic government and replaced it with the dreaded Shah. All the way into the 1980s and the bloody 8-year war with Iraq, in which the US favored Saddam Hussein.
Starting from foreign policy, you cannot find friends in Iran. But if you start from economics, from technological cooperation, from cultural relations, there can be some common ground.
The people in the United States also have grievances. Certainly the hostage crisis, supporting some groups like Hezbollah that the U.S. considers to be terrorist groups. The refusal to acknowledge Israel's right for existence, or all issues of importance to American foreign policy.
For so long, those points of disagreement has been the focus of all the attention. Of course, there are some points of disagreement. You don't negotiate if you do not have disagreements. You negotiate to turn disagreements to agreements.
Right now, those disagreements are scattered across the desert hundreds of miles from Tehran, where for decades, Iranians have been aggressively developing a nuclear program they insist is for peaceful purposes, all the while acquiring the technology to enrich uranium to bomb-grade quality.
There are people in the international community and scientists in the United States who say there would only be one reason why Iran would have all these centrifuges, and that would be to build a nuclear device.
It was not. For Iran, it was just another example of technological advancement. But when this was faced by military threats, people took it as an issue of national pride.
Scientific accomplishments are a huge part of Iran's self-image. In spite of its isolation, it has launched a satellite and cloned a goat. Just a few days ago, the Ayatollah unveiled Iran's own copy of a U.S. surveillance drone. But for whatever it's worth, no one we talk to in Tehran believes the country wants to build a nuclear bomb.
How do they feel about nuclear weapons?
There are no nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are forbidden.
They say it's all spelled out on the Ayatollah's website. But there's no shortage of skeptics, which include Israel, Saudi Arabia, and members of Congress who would like very much to scuttle any deal.
This is a tricky negotiation.
Yes.
There's some political risk involved on both sides.
You are exactly right on that. Because for all these long years of distance and not having a positive and constructive dialogue, there has been a lot of suspicion. So both sides, because of that suspicion, have a hard time convincing others. But that is the nature of diplomacy.
The White House has said there's only a 50-50 chance that the negotiations will succeed. But whatever happens, this will be remembered as a moment of opportunity, lost or seized, the first one in a long time. And most people in Tehran seem ready to take the chance.